purpose of this SARE-funded project is to show an interesting trellising system. This trellising system, which is called leaning and lowering, allows the tomato vines to just keep growing upwards continuously.
Hi, Andy.
Hello, Sejal.
This is a remarkable project. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Growing tomatoes, of course, is something that most vegetable growers do. There's always a market for tomatoes. People love tomatoes. So I wanted to show an intensive production system. And part of that intensive production system involves this trellising system, which you see here. So I'd like to demonstrate for you and everybody watching.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. First of all, I want to point out these hangers here. These are really no-frills devices. There are more expensive ones you can buy, but these I think you can buy 1,000 for $40, and
Okay.
I think that that's
Sure.
pretty good. With this hanger, we wind a nice long piece of cord, 25 feet long,
Okay.
and then we suspend that down to where the plant comes out of the ground.
Okay.
And then using these plastic clips, which probably quite a lot of people have seen.
Yep.
These clips are nice. I like them a lot. The inner end of it bites around the string, and then it snaps shut. And then this thing doesn't slide.
Right. It's easy on, easy off too, right?
Easy on, easy off, and also easy on the plant.
Yeah,
I'm not
important.
a fan of the method of twisting string around tomato vines.
Okay.
I think that the chances are of girdling the vine are much higher because
Sure.
these vines get very heavy. Probably the biggest job, though, is the entire leaning and lowering.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, let's
just
take a
show you
look
how
at that.
that's done. So I'm going to start right here. First of all, I'm looking at this. This is almost reaching the top, but I'm also seeing that some of these plants have reached up to the bar. So I'm going to start lowering here. There's a little tiny side shoot. Going to remove that. I'm going to put a clip up here. Try not to go too high on the vine because what will happen is this leaf here is actually eventually going to turn out at a right angle from the stem. I don't want to clip it here because that will inhibit that from doing its normal thing. So I want to go below that. But eventually, when it does turn out at a right angle, this leaf may very well be leaning, resting on that clip and helping to hold the plant up in the air.
Okay.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhook this vine, and this is about 20-pound vine right now, and I'm going to uncoil 1 or 2 times and hook it up to this little zip tie I've got here.
Okay.
We're using these zip ties because these hangers don't work very well on this electrical conduit.
Right.
A lot of greenhouses doing this kind of thing will instead have some heavy steel cable, and these things sit fine on a steel cable. We just didn't construct it that way.
Okay.
So now, as I said, we're kind of moving backwards. Now we're going this way. We're going to the next plant down the line because we've just made available a new space for this to go to.
Okay.
So I'm going to get out my side shoots here. I like to go right to the top with side shoots and pinch out the very youngest side shoot. Just make sure you don't pinch out the terminal bud. Now I'll put another clip on. Right there.
Yep.
And now I'll reach up here and uncoil this a turn or two. And I like to keep it at a lot of tension. The reason why is because when I pull on it like this and make sure it's tight, the fruit stays off the ground.
Okay. And how do you attach the string to the plant initially? A simple knot or?
Just the clip right at the base.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good to know.
And this isn't the original clip because this string
Started when
the plant was put in.
Right.
So this string goes all the way to the base of that plant.
Okay.
So what I've been doing right through here, through the summer, is I remove the lower clips and I reuse them.
Okay.
Because they're not serving any purpose for it. See how loose this is?
Sure.
This isn't supporting anything at all.
Right.
So I can remove that.
Okay.
And I very often go right up the line pretty far until maybe I've only got 4 or 5 clips holding the vine
So that's
up.
good to know. You don't have to have any nut skills or anything like that
That's right.
to the system.
And actually, why don't we just unhook one of these
All right,
vines?
sounds good. I'll follow
and
you.
just see how long one of these vines can get. And I should also mention, being mid-September, these tomatoes are not in the ultimate peak health condition.
They look better than mine at home.
Okay. Well, they
Sure.
were just bursting with life
Right.
pretty much right through the month of August. But
Okay.
in recent weeks, they've started to go down a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm just going to unhook this. Actually, I'm just going to hand this to you.
All right.
You better use both hands.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
It's laden with fruit. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah, that is heavy.
Okay.
It's
I'm going to
amazing.
lay this down on the ground.
All right.
You just have a look at it. And why don't you, Sejal, try to locate where this
I
plant
am.
comes out of the ground.
I sure am. Oh, wow. All right. So I'm right over here.
Okay. So that's probably about 12 feet long.
Yeah.
So this plant, and this is not one of the more vigorous varieties.
Okay.
Some of these varieties are probably getting close to 18 feet long.
Okay. And I'm noticing quite a bit of pruning.
This is, the pruning on these is relentless.
Right.
You have to constantly prune. And that way, we're driving the nutrients and the energy that's being gathered from the sun to one growing tip. So that what we wind up with, and this is a standard way that tomatoes grow, leaf, 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 flower cluster. Leaf, 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 flower cluster.
So anything else has to go.
Anything else goes.
Right.
And tomatoes are really vigorous. They tend to be very weedy plants. They are weeds
Right, sure.
in Central America. They're weeds. But we want to force them to make fruit, not green foliage.
Right.
And so the way we do that is relentlessly prune out these axillary buds, which a lot of people call suckers. I tend to call them side shoots.
Okay. And also along the bottom, there's quite a bit here.
On the bottom, that's right, we've done a tremendous amount of pruning down below. As these vines grow up and they age, we need to remove these lower leaves. I'm not a fan of removing lower leaves early in the season. I like to leave them for a couple of reasons. For one reason, the plants need to gather sunlight to make energy to make the whole plant grow. In the earlier stages of growth, it's really important to let them just grow.
Right.
This is what I think. And another reason is that as you get into the summer sunshine, the chances of getting sunburn on the tomatoes is much higher if you don't have good foliage cover.
Right.
So I really like to leave that shade down there.
Okay. And when did you get these plants in the ground?
These were planted on April 18th.
April 18th. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. At the time that they were planted, the soil temperature was about 60 degrees. If you keep one of these tunnels closed up completely, of course we have it wide open now because
Right.
it's still summer.
Sure.
If you keep it closed, the soil heats up really rapidly.
Right. Okay.
And 60 degrees soil temperature is perfectly fine for planting
Okay.
tomatoes.
Did you have to cover any of the tomatoes up in the beginning?
Actually, we did.
Okay.
And that was before we installed the trellis system. We used hoops over all the rows of tomatoes and put row covers on them most nights until probably the second week of May, maybe third week of May, when we began to install the trellising system. One thing I want to point out is these vines are growing actually in the soil, not in containers, not in troughs with rock wool, which is the hydroponic way.
Okay.
This is directly in soil, which has been amended.
All right, so take a look at some more. Oh, this
We'll
is
have to go-
interesting to see it
Oh, yeah.
sort of turn around. So you're leaning them, and you were actually telling me before that it sort of just continues.
Yeah,
So
this
it's
is
a
actually
circular.
Exactly. With these two overhead pipes on which we're hanging the tomatoes, this is actually a continuous circular system. We keep running the vines around the back corner, the front corner. These could grow indefinitely.
Okay. And I don't think we talked about this, but the spacing. What do you do for spacing in between the tomatoes in a
These
system like
plants
this?
were put in at 16 inches between plants.
Wow.
Now that may sound a little tight.
Yeah.
You probably out in your garden, you might use like 2.5 feet
That's about
between
right.
plants.
Sure.
This is even a wide spacing for in this situation. I planted them a little wide because I didn't want to take any chances. This was a demonstration project. I wanted to make sure Each plant had enough space that we didn't get too much disease taking
Right.
over. I have seen this done as close as 12 inches, 1 foot.
Wow.
And it does work. Obviously, it's all very labor intensive. And you know, that's one of the things about this system that has to be borne in mind.
Sure.
Tons of labor here.
Yeah.
Very small space, very high productivity.
Do you have any idea how much you could get at market for, let's say, one plant?
Yeah, you could say that the value of each one of these plants probably ranges from anywhere from $50 to $90, I would say, depending on how, in terms of overall production throughout the whole season.
Sure.
So you put in one plant that might cost you $2.50, $3 to produce, and you come out with, let's say, $70, $80 per plant.
Right. That's pretty good.
If you've got 300 plants, do the math. That's a pretty good gross revenue for a space like this.
Yeah, sure, sure.
There are other input costs as well. Straw, for instance, that we're using on the ground here. I like to use straw because, first of all, it's an organic amendment to the soil. This is going to add organic matter to this soil inside this high tunnel, and it's good for the soil in the future.
Great. So you're not
Okay.
going to remove this.
Not going to remove this.
Stays.
It's going to be tilled in. Other input costs, well, those hangers, negligible. The clips, negligible. I think I got 5,000 for $60.
Okay, and probably you're going to use most of them again next year, next season.
Yeah, and I probably got through less than a third of the box.
Okay, so probably your labor then seems like your biggest.
Labor is huge.
Sure.
I should also mention in terms of the fertilizers that I'm using.
Oh, right, right.
I've probably used a grand total of 5 or 6 gallons of fish emulsion all summer.
Wow.
That's not much at
No,
all.
it's not.
That's maybe $100 or something.
Okay.
A jug of calcium is probably $30. Epsom salt, you can go to the local drugstore and buy a little milk carton of them, and I bought a half-gallon milk container of Epsom salt, probably used half of it.
Right, so it's going to last.
It costs nothing. Of course, you have infrastructure here. You build a high tunnel, it costs money.
Sure.
So some of this is, okay, let's grow a really productive crop with a huge return to try to make back our investment in our structure.
Right, right, okay.
The leaning and lowering trellising system's been in use for a few decades, and it's proven to be an effective way to manage indeterminate tomato vines. It requires some season-long diligence, but there's a lot of return for the labor investment. It makes the best use of vertical tunnel space, reduces disease, keeps fruit clean, makes harvesting easy, and the per-plant yields are very high. And it's an efficient way for some of the newer growers in Rhode Island to use their scarce land resources.